If you've ever owned a Boxster, you've probably heard your fair share of, it's not a proper Porsche though, is it? You'd only buy one of those if you couldn't afford a 911. But you know that it's one of the most balanced drivers cars out there, and its popularity is the reason why Porsche is still here today. It started life with a mere 200 horsepower back in 1996, but it's grown plenty of muscle since then. And with the recent Spyder, we thought the Boxster had peaked. But then Porsche said, hold my beer, and threw a huge middle finger at the Boxster complex with the 9,000 RPM motor from the GT4 RS to create something we never thought would exist, a convertible RS model. Before we get into it, can we just take a moment to look at this thing? It's dripping in carbon with the Visac pack, its paint to sample Viola metallic looks mega in the sun, and the silver wheels and yellow accents inside and out just finish it off really nicely. So, the ingredients of this thing are pretty special, and thanks to its generous owner who's just done a week with us in the Alps, we're going to find out how special the results are out on the road. You probably remember back in 2005 when the original Cayman came out. Never really happened with the Boxster, because people just accepted it for what it was, but with the Cayman, it was the Cayman complex because it was such a good car, but everyone knew that Porsche was just holding it back so it didn't interfere with the 911. Everyone always wondered what would it be like with a 911 engine. Well, with the 981, the GT4 came along with a 911 engine, and it was so good. It was everything everyone had always hoped for. But people being people are never happy, and everyone wondered, okay, what would it be like with a GT3 engine? But we kind of thought, nah, they'll never do that. They'll never put a GT3 engine in a Cayman. They just won't allow it. But with the GT4 RS, they did, and it was spectacular. I mean, the noise from it was unbelievable. And then people started to wonder, what would it be like without a roof? Imagine that engine without a roof. And again, you think, nah, they won't do that. Here I am in a Spyder RS. They obviously did do that, and I am so glad they did. Now that's what's important about this car rather than raw numbers, but it does have all the good stuff. 4 litre flat 6 from the GT3, 9,000 RPM, 500 horsepower, weighs a smidge over 1,400 kilos. So it really does move. But as you can hear, right behind me, I could probably reach them if I'd done a bit more stretching this morning. Those carbon intakes from the 4RS. It is just a wild noise. I mean, it might be a bit too much, to be honest. I think by the end of today, this ear is going to be a little sore. But all we do is moan about how quiet cars have become these days, so let's not complain. Exhaust noise is really nice. You can hear that GT3 howling. But being an OPF car, which all of these are, the exhaust itself is maybe a little more muted than you'd like, but the intake kind of makes up for it. So we've got all the ingredients that made the GT4 RS so damn good, but this is more than just a GT4 RS without a roof. Visually, obviously, you can see instead of the rear wing, we've got that ducktail with the carbon lip on the back, a smaller front splitter to balance out the aero, but it also means we've got more clearance, so on bumpy roads you're a little less worried about scraping. Most importantly though is the suspension. The 4RS is stiff. It is amazing on a track, but on a British road at least it can be a little skittish. The dampers have been backed off quite a lot. And driving here on typical British roads, not once did I think, God, this is a bit stiff. And going quick on roads like this, it doesn't get thrown around. Porsche really understood what this car is actually for. It's not a track car.
it's for getting the top down and getting out on a day like today. That inevitably means a few bumps along the way, and it just deals with them. As with all RS cars today, Spyder RS is PDK only. It's as flawless as ever. You can try and confuse it. You won't confuse it, it's so quick. Double shift. Shifts up and down are just bang, instant. I kind of wish they'd stop trying to make it so perfect. I know that's a strange complaint, but just a little thump in the back on the upshifts and make her even more drama if it needs it, which it kind of doesn't, but it would be nice. Ceramic brakes on this are just sublime, so much confidence. I've just left it in the softer setting because we're on the road and we've got bumps and frankly don't need to be getting thrown around, but if you do want to go on track or anything, or you're on a super smooth road in the Alps, you can stiffen it up just at the push of a button. And that brings me to the buttons. It's nice that this will be the last of this old, if you will, Porsche interior, which is by today's standards quite basic. We've got an analog rev counter, buttons down here, but there's not a great deal to change really. You've not got to go into settings. If I want to turn the exhaust off, I just push that. The steering is ridiculously sharp. Porsche have absolutely nailed electric power steering by now. About 13 years since the 991 came out and people were a bit like, I'm not so sure about the steering. Now I'm definitely sure about the steering. I've just jumped out of a 987 Boxster, which has got awesome hydraulically assisted steering. This is every bit as good. So sharp. Is it a shame you can't get a manual? Yeah, I think it is. I mean, can you imagine this engine without a roof, shifting gears yourself? And I think that would again just lend it more towards the road bias character that Porsche are going for. But being stuck with PDK, no, it's no bad thing. It is absolutely awesome, and it does go with that sort of cup car character of that engine. But if you do want a manual, you're just going to have to get a regular Spyder and put the mother of all exhausts on it. But performance-wise, this is quite a leap up from a normal Spyder, and in terms of drama as well. But I don't think you miss out on the compliance of the normal Spyder, and that's just such a good thing. I think too many cars are misjudged these days and they just go a bit too far on the stiffness just to make you think, oh yeah, it's hardcore. Oh, that shriek. The shriek from the 4RS between 8 and 9,000 is still there. I mean, you can often lose exhaust noise when you start going quick in a convertible, but with it being right behind your ears, it's just there. And I mean, turning, it's just unbelievable. I'm really jealous of the guys who've just taken this around the Alps for a week. As road cars go, I honestly think this is right up there with the best. It's just so exciting, and it just works on the road.
I'm not really sure I need to answer the question of how special this thing is if you've been watching so far, but the answer is very. The engine is sensational with that induction noise, the chassis is more than a match for the motor, and the damping means it's not a pain to use on British roads. The only downside I can think of is the roof, which I had to follow along with a YouTube video just to take it off. It is that much of a pain. And that brings me on to the regular Spyder, because there's a strong argument for that car at less than half the price. You don't need an instruction manual to operate the roof, its 420 horsepower means you can push it harder on the road, and of course you can spec a manual box for even more involvement. All it really needs is a naughty exhaust, and you can't really go wrong. That said, if you have the means and want something truly special, the Spyder RS will not disappoint. It's a shame so many will likely sit unused because of their rarity. Thankfully though, that isn't the case with this car, and if you own one, Forget the mileage, because the Spyder RS is one of the finest driver's cars you can buy.